Have you ever stood in the shadow of an ancient structure and felt a sudden, almost inexplicable sense of awe? It's not just the grandeur of the stone or the scale of the design. It's the way the light dances across its surface, carving out shadows that seem to tell a story. Ancient architects didn't just build with stone, they sculpted with sunlight and shadow, creating spaces that felt alive. But how did they achieve this mastery over something as intangible as light? What secrets are hidden in the way these structures interact with the sun and the stars? In this video, we'll uncover the mysteries behind the deliberate use of shadow and light in ancient architecture, exploring how these techniques shaped the way we design spaces even today. Join us as we step into the past to discover how the interplay of darkness and illumination wasn't just a practical consideration. It was an art form, a language, and a testament to the ingenuity of civilizations long gone. This is a journey through history where every beam of light and every shadow holds a clue to the brilliance of ancient minds. The story of shadow and light in architecture begins thousands of years ago, with the earliest civilizations harnessing the power of the sun to shape their built environments. In Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, architects designed towering ziggurats, massive step temples that reached toward the heavens. These structures were not just feats of engineering, but also carefully calibrated to interact with sunlight, casting intricate shadows that changed with the time of day. The play of light and dark wasn't just aesthetic, it held deep spiritual significance, symbolizing the connection between the earthly and the divine. Over in ancient Egypt, the architects of the Great Pyramid of Giza took this concept even further. They aligned the pyramid's sides with extraordinary precision to the cardinal points of the compass, ensuring the structure would interact with the sun's rays in specific ways. At dawn and dusk, the pyramid's edges would catch the light dramatically, creating a visual spectacle that underscored the pharaoh's divine status. Inside, narrow shafts were designed to channel sunlight into the burial chambers, transforming the tomb into a luminous space that guided the soul to the afterlife. These early experiments with shadow and light were more than mere technical achievements. They were profound expressions of how ancient civilizations understood their place in the cosmos. By manipulating natural light, architects in Mesopotamia and Egypt created spaces that weren't just functional but deeply symbolic. The interplay of light and shadow became a language, speaking to themes of power, spirituality, and the eternal. And as these ideas spread, they laid the groundwork for centuries of architectural innovation, inspiring cultures across the globe to explore the possibilities of light in their own designs. From these ancient beginnings, the use of shadow and light evolved into a cornerstone of architectural thought, shaping everything from sacred temples to everyday dwellings. The lessons learned by these early architects would echo through the ages, proving that the simplest elements of nature, light and shadow, could become tools for creating spaces that inspire wonder and meaning. Across the ancient world, light was far more than just a practical necessity. It was a profound symbol of divinity, knowledge, and life itself. For civilizations like the Greeks and Egyptians, light represented the presence of the gods, a force that illuminated not just the physical world but the spiritual realm as well. Temples dedicated to sun gods, such as Apollo in Greece or Ra in Egypt, were meticulously designed to harness and honor this sacred energy. The placement of these structures often aligned with the path of the sun, ensuring that at specific times of the year, light would flood the inner sanctuaries in a dramatic display of celestial power. In Egypt, towering obelisks were more than just monuments. They were architectural expressions of the sun's journey across the sky. Their surfaces, often covered in gold or reflective materials, caught the sun's rays and sent beams of light radiating outward, symbolizing the connection between the heavens and the earth. This reverence for light didn't just shape individual buildings, it influenced entire city layouts, with streets and plazas oriented to maximize the interplay of sunlight and shadow. But light's counterpart, shadow, held its own significance in these ancient designs. Architects understood that shadows weren't just the absence of light, but a powerful tool to create contrast, depth, and mystery. In Greek temples, the alternating play of light and shadow across columns and friezes brought the stone to life, emphasizing intricate carvings and creating a sense of movement. Similarly, in Egyptian tombs, the strategic use of shadow in narrow passageways and chambers heightened the sense of awe and reverence, guiding visitors through spaces that felt both sacred and otherworldly. This interplay between light and shadow wasn't just aesthetic, it was symbolic. Light represented clarity, truth, and the divine, while shadow hinted at the unknown, the hidden, and the mystical. Together, they created a dynamic balance that mirrored the complexities of human existence and the natural world. As we explore further, we'll see how this duality shaped not just the architecture of the past, but the ways in which ancient cultures understood their place in the cosmos. As you step into the hypostyle hall of Karnak, it's impossible not to feel a sense of wonder. The towering columns, densely packed and intricately carved, create a mesmerizing interplay of light and shadow. This wasn't accidental, it was genius. Ancient architects understood the power of shadow not just as an absence of light, but as a tool to craft emotion and meaning. In spaces like these, shadows transform stone into something alive, something that seems to whisper secrets of the past. The result, a place that feels both sacred and mysterious, where the boundary between the earthly and the divine blurs. Shadows weren't just decorative, they were deliberate. In the hypostyle hall, the columns are arranged so that sunlight filters through in unpredictable patterns, casting shifting shapes across the floor. This dynamic movement of light and shadow wasn't just beautiful, it was purposeful. It guided worshippers through the space, drawing their attention to altars and statues meant to inspire awe. The shadows acted as a silent guide, directing focus and creating a sense of journey. Every step became a ritual, every shadow a marker of something greater. But how did these architects achieve such precision? It wasn't just artistry, it was science. By studying the path of the sun and the angles of light, they could predict how shadows would fall at different times of day or year. In sacred spaces, this knowledge was used to enhance spiritual experiences. For example, during solstices or equinoxes, shadows might align perfectly with certain symbols or pathways, creating moments of heightened significance. This blend of astronomy, geometry, and artistry shows just how advanced these ancient builders were. They didn't just construct buildings, they crafted experiences. The use of shadow wasn't limited to Karnak. Across ancient civilizations, from Egypt to Greece to Mesoamerica, shadows were a universal language of mystery and power. They added depth to stories, transformed spaces into sanctuaries, and made the divine feel tangible. Even today, standing in these ancient structures, you can't help but feel the weight of that intention. Shadows remind us that sometimes what isn't seen is just as important as what is. They invite us to look closer, to wonder, and to connect with something beyond the visible. Ancient builders possessed an extraordinary understanding of the skies, using their knowledge of astronomy to create structures that aligned perfectly with the sun. Think about it, without modern technology, they managed to design buildings that marked the solstices and equinoxes with astonishing precision. Take Stonehenge, for instance. This iconic monument in England was carefully arranged so that during the summer solstice, the rising sun aligns perfectly with the heel stone, casting a dramatic beam of light through the center of the stones. This wasn't just a random feat, it was a deliberate act of celestial engineering. In Egypt, the Temple of Karnak offers another breathtaking example. Its massive columns and obelisks were positioned to capture the sun's rays during specific times of the year, creating dramatic light effects that symbolized the connection between the heavens and the earth. To achieve such accuracy, ancient architects likely used simple but effective tools like the gnomon, a stick or pillar that casts a shadow, and the merkit, a device for tracking stars. These tools, combined with their deep understanding of the sun's path, allowed them to map out alignments with incredible precision. But why go to such lengths? The alignment of these structures wasn't just about aesthetics, it was about meaning. When the sun hit these buildings at the right angle, it transformed them. Shadows shifted, light danced across walls, and the entire space became a stage for celestial storytelling. This interplay of shadow and light wasn't accidental. It was a deliberate way to connect the physical world with the divine. It's a reminder of how ancient cultures saw themselves as part of a larger cosmic order, one they could observe, celebrate, and even shape through their architecture. Ancient architects were master manipulators of light and shadow, and their choice of materials played a pivotal role in this artistry. One of the most striking examples is the use of white marble in Greek temples such as the Parthenon. This material wasn't selected merely for its durability or aesthetic appeal. It was chosen for its remarkable ability to reflect sunlight, creating a luminous effect that made the structures appear almost divine. As the sun moved across the sky, the marble captured and scattered light, transforming the temple into a dynamic, ever-changing spectacle. Similarly, in ancient Egypt, polished limestone was a material of choice for structures like the Great Pyramid of Giza. Its smooth, reflective surface interacted with the intense desert sunlight, casting sharp, defined shadows that emphasized the monument's geometric precision. These materials didn't just serve practical purposes, they were tools for enhancing the spiritual and visual impact of these ancient wonders. But the story doesn't end with the materials themselves. The architects also relied on geometry to amplify these effects, carefully designing angles and surfaces to manipulate light in ways that would awe and inspire. This interplay between material and form wasn't accidental. It was a deliberate, sophisticated strategy that reveals just how deeply ancient builders understood the power of light and shadow. Ancient architects were masters of their craft, not only in construction but in the art of manipulating light and shadow through precise geometric principles. Take the Parthenon, for example. Its columns are carefully spaced and angled to create a rhythm of light and darkness, enhancing its grandeur as the sun moves across the sky. This wasn't accidental. The Greeks used symmetry and the golden ratio to ensure every shadow fell exactly where it should, creating a sense of harmony that feels almost alive. The same principles appear in Roman basilicas, where the interplay of angles and arches directs sunlight in ways that emphasize the space's vastness and inspire awe. But geometry wasn't just about aesthetics, it was deeply tied to the cultural values of the time. For the Greeks, symmetry represented order and balance, reflecting their belief in a universe governed by rational laws. The Romans, on the other hand, used geometry to project power and authority, crafting spaces that felt both grand and immutable. These principles weren't just technical, they were a language speaking to the spiritual, political, and philosophical ideals of their creators. As we look closer, it's clear that the geometry of light and shadow wasn't just about building structures, it was about shaping experiences. Light and shadow in ancient architecture weren't just functional elements, they were deeply tied to culture, belief, and storytelling. Take the Greeks, for example. Their temples were designed to harness sunlight in precise ways, creating dramatic contrasts that symbolized the divine order of the cosmos. The Parthenon's columns, perfectly spaced, cast ever-shifting shadows that seemed to animate the structure throughout the day. It wasn't just about aesthetics, it was about evoking a sense of harmony with the gods. The Romans, on the other hand, took this concept further by incorporating it into their public spaces. Their use of light in structures like the Pantheon was both practical and symbolic. The oculus at the dome's center wasn't just a source of light, it was a connection to the heavens, a reminder of Rome's divine authority. Yet, as trade routes expanded, these ideas mingled with others, creating a rich tapestry of architectural innovation. Across the world, the Maya civilization approached light and shadow with a different perspective. Their pyramids, like El Castillo at Chichén Itzá, were meticulously aligned to interact with the sun during equinoxes. The play of light and shadow created the illusion of a serpent slithering down the steps, a powerful symbol of their deity Kukulkan. This wasn't just an architectural feat, it was a way to weave their myths into the very fabric of their buildings. Meanwhile, in ancient China, light and shadow were integral to the principles of Feng Shui. Structures were designed to balance yin and yang, with courtyards and windows carefully positioned to allow soft, diffused light to enter. This created a serene atmosphere, reflecting the cultural emphasis on harmony with nature. Trade and cultural exchange played a significant role in shaping these practices. The Silk Road, for instance, wasn't just a route for goods, it was a conduit for ideas. Techniques and philosophies traveled alongside spices and silks, influencing how different civilizations approached their architectural designs. And then there's the role of light in storytelling. In many cultures, light and shadow weren't just visual elements, they were narrative tools. A sunbeam piercing through a temple window or the flicker of a torch in a Roman basilica could evoke a sense of wonder, mystery, or divine presence. These architectural choices weren't accidental, they were deliberate attempts to tell stories, to connect people with something larger than themselves. Light wasn't just a functional element in ancient architecture, it was a powerful storytelling tool. Architects mastered the art of manipulating sunlight to highlight specific details, creating moments of awe and connection. Take the Temple of Abu Simbel in Egypt, for example. Twice a year, at dawn during the equinoxes, sunlight penetrates the temple's inner sanctuary, illuminating statues of Ramses II and the god Amun-Ra while leaving the god Ptah, associated with darkness in shadow. This wasn't an accident, it was a deliberate design choice, a visual spectacle that reinforced the pharaoh's divine status and the cosmic order of Egyptian belief. For ancient visitors, this alignment wasn't just a marvel of engineering. It was a deeply spiritual experience, a moment where the physical and the divine seemed to intersect. But Abu Simbel is just one example of how light was used to convey messages. In other cultures, like the Greeks and Romans, light was often employed to emphasize the grandeur of their gods and heroes. Statues and carvings were positioned to catch the first or last rays of the sun, creating dramatic contrasts that brought myths and legends to life. These techniques weren't just about aesthetics, they were about engagement. By turning sunlight into a narrative device, architects ensured that their stories weren't just seen, they were felt. This storytelling through light wasn't confined to temples alone. In ancient cities, light played a practical yet equally symbolic role. Streets and public spaces were often designed to maximize sunlight during specific hours, guiding movement and creating focal points. For instance, in Roman cities, the alignment of public buildings and open plazas often followed the path of the sun, ensuring that key areas were bathed in light during the busiest times of day. This wasn't just about convenience, it was a way of reinforcing societal order, using light to guide citizens through their daily lives. The interplay of light and shadow wasn't just a product of chance or necessity. It was a deliberate choice, a way for ancient architects to weave stories into the very fabric of their creations. By understanding how they used light, we gain a deeper appreciation for their ingenuity and the timeless power of storytelling through design. ancient cities were masterpieces of intentional design, crafted not just for function but for harmony with the natural world. Take Mohenjo-Daro, one of the world's earliest urban centers, as a prime example. Its grid layout wasn't just about order, it was a deliberate effort to harness natural light and ventilation. Streets were aligned to catch prevailing winds, while buildings were spaced to allow sunlight to filter through, creating a balance between openness and shade. This wasn't just practical, it was a way to enhance the quality of daily life, reducing the need for artificial lighting and cooling long before such concepts existed. The Romans took this idea even further, designing their streets with precise orientation to the sun. In cities like Pompeii, thoroughfares were laid out to maximize sunlight exposure throughout the day, ensuring homes and public spaces remained bright and airy. This wasn't just about comfort, it was about energy efficiency in an age when resources were precious. By aligning their cities with the sun's path, ancient planners created environments that worked with nature, not against it. But the role of light went beyond practicality. In many ancient cultures, light was deeply intertwined with spirituality and ceremony. The way sunlight entered a temple or illuminated a sacred space wasn't just an accident of design. It was a deliberate choice to connect the mundane with the divine. This interplay of light and architecture transformed everyday spaces into places of wonder and reverence, a concept we'll explore further as we dig into the spiritual significance of light in ancient civilizations. Imagine stepping into an ancient temple where beams of sunlight stream through a single, perfectly placed opening in the ceiling. This isn't just an architectural choice, it's a deliberate effort to elevate the spiritual experience. In sacred spaces across the ancient world, light wasn't merely functional, it was a powerful tool to connect the earthly with the divine. Take the Pantheon in Rome, for instance. Its iconic oculus, a circular opening at the dome's apex, doesn't just illuminate the interior, it transforms the space. As sunlight pours through, it creates a moving spotlight that shifts with the hours, marking the passage of time in a way that feels almost sacred. This interplay of light and shadow wasn't accidental. It was designed to remind visitors of their place in the cosmos, bridging the gap between the human and the divine. In places like the tombs of Petra in Jordan, light takes on a different but equally profound role. Carved into rose-red cliffs, these ancient burial sites were often designed to align with the sun's rays during specific times of the year. During solstices or equinoxes, shafts of light would penetrate deep into the chambers, illuminating sacred symbols or altars. These moments weren't just visually stunning, they were deeply symbolic, representing a connection between the living and the afterlife. The architects of Petra understood that light could evoke awe and reverence, turning stone into something transcendent. But the use of light in ancient architecture wasn't limited to spirituality alone. It also had a theatrical quality, almost as if these spaces were stages for dramatic storytelling. In Egyptian temples, for example, narrow windows and carefully positioned shafts of light would illuminate specific statues or hieroglyphs during ceremonies, guiding the viewer's gaze and heightening the emotional impact. This wasn't just architecture, it was performance, using light as a storyteller to convey messages of power, faith, and mystery. The ancients knew that light could shape perception, drawing people into a shared experience that felt both intimate and otherworldly. Ancient theaters were more than just stages for performances. They were masterpieces of design that harnessed the power of light and shadow to create unforgettable experiences. Take Greek amphitheaters, for example. These open-air structures were meticulously planned to make the most of natural sunlight, using it as a tool to spotlight actors and guide the audience's attention. The positioning of these theaters wasn't random. Architects carefully studied the angle of the sun throughout the day and across different seasons. This ensured that performers were bathed in light during crucial moments, while shadows added drama and depth to the storytelling. But it wasn't just about practicality, it was artistry. By aligning the stage with the sun's path, they could create dynamic lighting effects that changed as the performance unfolded. Imagine a tragic scene illuminated by the soft, golden light of late afternoon, or a climactic moment heightened by the sharp contrast of shadows as the sun dipped lower. These techniques didn't just enhance the performance, they became part of the narrative itself. This thoughtful use of light and shadow didn't end with the Greeks. Their principles laid the groundwork for architectural designs that followed, influencing everything from Roman theaters to Renaissance stages. Even today, these ancient techniques echo in modern theaters, where lighting still plays a pivotal role in shaping the audience's experience. It's a testament to how these early architects understood the emotional power of light and used it to transform mere performances into lasting memories. The timeless principles of light and shadow that ancient architects mastered have left an indelible mark on the way we design spaces today. Gothic cathedrals with their soaring stained glass windows are a prime example. These structures were not just feats of engineering, they were carefully calculated to manipulate sunlight, creating an ethereal glow that transforms the interior into a sacred space. The same interplay of light and shadow can be seen in modern architecture, where designers draw inspiration from these ancient techniques to evoke emotion and awe. Take the work of contemporary architects like Tadao Ando or Louis Kahn. Ando's use of concrete and natural light creates serene, meditative spaces that feel both ancient and futuristic. Kahn's designs, such as the Kimbell Art Museum, use light as a defining element, much like the architects of old who built temples to the sun. These modern masterpieces show that the lessons of the past are still very much alive, shaping how we think about space, form, and atmosphere. Yet, for all we've learned, there are still mysteries that remain unsolved. How did ancient builders achieve such precise alignments without modern tools? What secrets did they know about the psychological effects of light and shadow that we're only beginning to rediscover? These questions remind us that while we've made incredible strides, there's still much to uncover from the architectural wisdom of our ancestors. Throughout history, ancient architects achieved feats that continue to baffle us today. Take the Haga Kim Temple in Malta, for instance. This Neolithic structure, dating back over 5,000 years, is renowned for its precise alignment with the solstices. During the summer solstice, sunlight streams through the main doorway, illuminating specific chambers in a way that highlights the builder's deep understanding of light and shadow. But how did they accomplish this without advanced tools or technology? The question lingers, sparking debates among historians and archaeologists alike. Some theories suggest that ancient builders used simple yet ingenious methods, such as observing shadows cast by poles or stones over long periods. Others propose that they relied on celestial markers, meticulously tracking the sun's path across the sky. Yet, despite these plausible explanations, gaps remain in our understanding. The precision of their work raises questions about the extent of their knowledge and whether they might have had access to techniques or insights that have since been lost to time. Modern technology offers new opportunities to unravel these mysteries. Laser scanning and 3D modeling allow us to analyze ancient structures in unprecedented detail, revealing hidden patterns or subtle design choices that might have been overlooked. For example, recent studies of Haga Kim have uncovered faint carvings and markings that could hint at a more sophisticated system of planning and alignment. But even with these advancements, some secrets remain stubbornly out of reach. Preservation also plays a crucial role in this puzzle. As time and the elements take their toll, these ancient sites face the risk of further deterioration. Efforts to protect and restore them not only safeguard our shared heritage, but also provide a clearer window into the minds of their creators. Each stone preserved, each carving protected, brings us one step closer to understanding how these architects harnessed light and shadow to craft structures that still captivate us today. What other secrets might lie hidden in the shadows of these ancient wonders? Only time and continued exploration will tell. Preserving the intricate play of light and shadow in ancient architecture is no small feat. Over centuries, these structures face the relentless forces of nature, human intervention, and time itself. Restorers and archaeologists are tasked with not just preserving the physical form of these buildings, but also the subtle, intentional effects crafted by their original designers. Take the Pantheon in Rome, for instance. Its iconic oculus, designed to flood the interior with natural light, has required meticulous care to ensure that the sunlight continues to stream in exactly as it did 2,000 years ago. This isn't just about repairing stone or mortar. It's about maintaining a dialogue with the past, ensuring that the architect's vision remains intact for future generations. One of the greatest challenges in these efforts is understanding the original intent behind the design. Ancient builders didn't just construct buildings, they sculpted experiences. Light and shadow were tools they used to evoke emotion, guide movement, and even communicate spiritual ideas. In the Temple of Karnak in Egypt, for example, the columns were arranged to create a rhythmic interplay of light and dark, symbolizing the journey from the earthly to the divine. Modern restorers must carefully study these patterns, often using advanced technology like 3D modeling, to ensure that their work doesn't inadvertently alter these profound effects. There are inspiring examples where restoration has succeeded in preserving these delicate features. The Alhambra in Spain, renowned for its intricate geometric patterns and the way sunlight dances across its surfaces, has undergone extensive conservation efforts. By using traditional materials and techniques, restorers have managed to keep the interplay of light and shadow as mesmerizing as it was in the 13th century. These successes remind us that preservation isn't just about maintaining the physical structure, it's about honoring the artistry and intent behind it. This brings us to the role of light in ancient homes and daily life. Beyond grand monuments, light was a fundamental element in shaping how people lived. From the courtyards of Roman villas to the narrow windows of medieval homes, the way light entered a space dictated everything from warmth to privacy. Understanding these everyday uses of light offers a deeper appreciation for how ancient societies interacted with their environment and crafted their living spaces. Stepping into the world of ancient homes, it's fascinating to see how architects and builders harnessed light and shadow to transform everyday spaces into realms of both practicality and beauty. Take Roman villas, for instance. These sprawling residences often centered around a courtyard, known as an atrium, where sunlight would pour in, illuminating the interior rooms while creating cooling shadows that offered respite from the Mediterranean heat. This wasn't just about aesthetics, it was a masterclass in blending comfort with functionality. The atrium acted as a natural light source, reducing the need for artificial lighting and creating a sense of openness even in bustling urban areas. Similarly, in the dense jungles of Mesoamerica, the Maya crafted homes with an intimate understanding of their environment. Their dwellings often featured strategically placed windows and narrow doorways, designed not only to let in light but also to control airflow and maintain cooler indoor temperatures. These openings allowed sunlight to filter in during the day, casting intricate patterns of shadow that shifted with the sun's movement. It was a delicate dance between nature and architecture, ensuring that these homes remained livable in the humid, tropical climate. But light wasn't just about creating comfort, it was also a tool for survival. In ancient warfare, the placement of windows and doors could mean the difference between safety and vulnerability. Think of fortified homes or castles where narrow slits allowed defenders to see outward while minimizing exposure to incoming threats. Light became a weapon, illuminating enemies while keeping defenders concealed in shadow. This duality of light, both a source of life and a strategic advantage, reveals just how deeply it was woven into the fabric of ancient life. One of the most fascinating applications of light and shadow in ancient times lies in the realm of defense and warfare. Architects and engineers didn't just build walls and towers, they carefully considered how light could be harnessed to gain a strategic advantage. Take the walls of Constantinople, for instance. These massive fortifications weren't just about height and thickness. Their design incorporated subtle elements to manipulate light, making it harder for attackers to gauge distances or spot weaknesses. Watchtowers were deliberately positioned to catch the sun at key angles, ensuring sentries had clear visibility during dawn and dusk, times when enemies often launched their assaults. But it wasn't just about visibility. Shadows played a crucial role too. By creating deep recesses and overhangs in fortress walls, architects could obscure movement, making it difficult for invaders to see defenders preparing counterattacks. This clever use of shadow wasn't just practical, it was psychological, instilling doubt and confusion in attackers. Imagine standing before a towering wall, sunlight casting jagged shadows that seem to shift unpredictably. It's no wonder such designs struck fear into the hearts of enemies. From these practical applications, we see how the interplay of light and shadow began to transcend mere utility. The same principles that guided military architects would later inspire artists and builders to use light not just for defense, but for beauty and meaning. It's a testament to how ancient innovations often blurred the lines between function and artistry, shaping civilizations in ways that still resonate today. Ancient artists had a profound understanding of how light and shadow could transform their creations, breathing life into stone and metal. Take Greek statues, for example. Sculptors would carefully carve marble to interact with sunlight, creating subtle shifts in texture and form as the day progressed. The soft curves of a statue's face or the delicate folds of draped clothing would appear to move, giving the illusion of life frozen in time. This wasn't accidental, it was a deliberate choice to make these figures feel more human, more real, as if they could step out of their pedestals at any moment. Persian reliefs offer another stunning example. In places like Persepolis, intricate carvings on stone walls were designed to catch the light at specific angles, emphasizing details and enhancing their storytelling. The play of light and shadow wasn't just decorative, it added depth, drawing the viewer's eye to key elements of the narrative. Imagine standing in front of these reliefs as the sun shifted, watching the figures seem to come alive, their stories unfolding before your eyes. This artistic mastery of light didn't just serve aesthetic purposes, it also held deeper, symbolic meaning. In many ancient cultures, light represented life, divinity, and the eternal. By harnessing its power, artists connected their work to these profound ideas, creating pieces that were not only beautiful but also spiritually resonant. And speaking of symbolism, this relationship between light and the sacred becomes even more evident when we look at its role in ancient burials and tombs. How did these civilizations use light to honor their dead and guide them into the afterlife? That's a mystery we'll explore next. In the ancient world, light wasn't just a practical element, it was a profound symbol, especially when it came to burial sites. For civilizations like the Egyptians and the Etruscans, tombs were more than just resting places for the dead. They were gateways to the afterlife, and light played a crucial role in guiding the departed on their journey. Take the Egyptian pyramids, for example. These monumental structures were designed with precision, aligning with celestial bodies like the stars and the sun. The narrow shafts within the pyramids allowed sunlight to penetrate deep into the chambers, creating dramatic plays of light and shadow. This wasn't just an architectural feat, it was a spiritual necessity. The light was believed to be a connection to the gods, a path for the soul to ascend into eternity. Similarly, the Etruscans crafted their tombs with care, often incorporating openings that allowed natural light to filter in. These designs weren't random, they reflected a deep belief in the transformative power of light. For them, it symbolized the transition from life to the afterlife, a guiding force that ensured the deceased could navigate the unknown. The interplay of light and shadow in these spaces wasn't just visual, it was symbolic, representing the duality of existence, the balance between the mortal world and the eternal. This use of light in tombs reveals something profound about ancient societies. Their understanding of death wasn't about finality, but about transformation. Light was a bridge, a way to ensure the soul's safe passage. And this wasn't limited to tombs. Light also played a central role in rituals. In ceremonies marking death or honoring ancestors, light was often used to evoke presence, a reminder that while the body might be gone, the spirit remained. From the flicker of oil lamps to the glow of torches, these practices connected the living and the dead, creating a sense of continuity that spanned generations. The way these ancient cultures harnessed light speaks to a universal human desire to find meaning in the unknown and to believe in something beyond the horizon of this life. Light wasn't just a practical element in ancient societies. It was a powerful force intertwined with spirituality, celebration, and meaning. Across cultures, light played a central role in rituals and ceremonies, often symbolizing life, renewal, or divine presence. Take the Roman festival of Saturnalia, for instance, celebrated during the darkest days of winter. Fires and candles were lit to honor Saturn, the god of agriculture, and to symbolize the return of the sun's vitality. These flames weren't just decorative, they were a way to connect the physical world with the spiritual, creating a sense of warmth and hope during the cold season. In Persia, the festival of Nowruz marked the spring equinox and the beginning of the new year. Light was a key part of the celebration, with bonfires lit to purify and renew. The act of jumping over the flames was believed to cleanse the soul and bring good fortune. Even the architecture of the time reflected this reverence for light. Ziggurats and temples were often designed to align with the rising sun during significant dates, amplifying the symbolic power of these events. But why was light so deeply tied to these rituals? It's more than just its ability to dispel darkness. Light represented knowledge, clarity, and the divine. In many ancient philosophies, the interplay of light and shadow mirrored the duality of existence, order and chaos, life and death. This relationship wasn't just philosophical, it was physical too. Architects crafted spaces that manipulated light to enhance these ceremonial experiences. Think of the way sunlight would filter through temple columns, casting intricate patterns that seemed to dance with the movement of the sun. These moments weren't accidental. They were carefully designed to create awe, to make participants feel connected to something greater than themselves. And that's where the magic lies. Ancient people understood that light wasn't just something you saw, it was something you felt. It shaped their world, their beliefs, and even their built environment. Ancient architects didn't just use light and shadow as tools, they saw them as profound symbols, woven into the fabric of their understanding of the world. Take Plato's famous allegory of the cave, for instance. In this philosophical tale, prisoners are chained inside a cave, seeing only the shadows cast by a fire behind them. To them, these shadows represent reality until they are freed and exposed to the sun's true light. This idea that light reveals truth while shadow obscures it deeply influenced how ancient cultures thought about design. Buildings were crafted not just to serve practical purposes, but to evoke enlightenment literally and symbolically. Then there's Zoroastrianism, one of the world's oldest religions, which saw light and darkness as eternal, opposing forces. Light represented Ahura Mazda, the god of wisdom and goodness, while darkness was linked to Angra Mainyu, the spirit of chaos and destruction. This dualistic view shaped not only spiritual beliefs but also architectural choices. Temples were designed to maximize natural light, creating spaces that felt divine and pure, while shadows were used to emphasize contrast, reminding worshippers of the constant struggle between good and evil. These philosophical ideas didn't just stay in the realm of thought, they became the foundation of how ancient societies structured their world. Light wasn't just a practical tool, it was a metaphor for knowledge, truth, and divinity. And as these ideas evolved, they began to influence even the way time itself was measured. In ancient Egypt, for example, obelisks and sundials used the movement of shadows to track the hours, turning the sun into humanity's first clock. This blending of philosophy and practicality shows just how deeply intertwined light and shadow were with every aspect of life in the ancient world. One of the most fascinating ways ancient civilizations harnessed light and shadow was through their innovative methods of timekeeping. Long before the invention of mechanical clocks, people relied on the sun's movement across the sky to mark the passage of time. In ancient Rome, for instance, sundials were a common sight, often intricately carved into public spaces and private courtyards. These devices worked by casting a shadow from a central gnomon onto a calibrated surface, allowing observers to read the time based on the shadow's position. But it wasn't just about functionality. These sundials were often works of art, seamlessly blending into the architectural grandeur of their surroundings. Similarly, in ancient Egypt, shadow clocks were used as early as the 13th century BC. These devices were simple yet effective, consisting of a flat base with a raised crossbar that cast shadows in predictable patterns throughout the day. What's remarkable is how these timekeeping tools were deeply integrated into the architecture and daily life of these societies. Temples, obelisks, and even entire city layouts were designed to align with the movement of the sun, creating a harmonious relationship between time, light, and space. This integration wasn't just practical, it was symbolic. By embedding these timekeeping devices into their structures, ancient cultures demonstrated a profound understanding of their environment and the celestial rhythms that governed their lives. The role of light extended beyond mere measurement, influencing how cities were planned to adapt to seasonal changes, ensuring that sunlight would illuminate key areas during different times of the year. This intricate interplay between light, architecture, and timekeeping reveals a sophistication that continues to inspire awe today. Ancient civilizations possessed an extraordinary awareness of the natural world, and nowhere is this more evident than in their city planning. Take Teotihuacan, for instance, where the Pyramid of the Sun aligns precisely with the sun's path during key seasonal transitions. This wasn't just a random architectural choice, it was a deliberate act to harmonize the city with the rhythms of nature. The builders understood that light wasn't static, it shifted with the seasons, and their designs reflected this profound insight. Across the globe, in Ireland, Newgrange stands as another testament to this ancient wisdom. During the winter solstice, the rising sun floods its inner chamber with light, a phenomenon carefully engineered to mark the year's darkest day with a burst of illumination. This wasn't merely a construction marvel, it was a symbolic gesture, a reminder of renewal and the cyclical nature of time. These examples reveal a shared understanding among ancient cultures. Light was more than a practical tool, it was a spiritual and cultural force. By aligning their cities and monuments with seasonal light patterns, they created spaces that were not only functional but deeply meaningful. This global legacy of thoughtful design continues to inspire modern architecture, reminding us of the enduring connection between humanity and the natural world. The use of light and shadow in ancient architecture wasn't confined to one region or culture. It traveled across continents, carried by trade routes, conquest, and cultural exchanges. Imagine the intricate geometric patterns of Islamic mosques, where sunlight filters through lattice screens, casting ever-shifting patterns on marble floors. These designs didn't emerge in isolation. They were influenced by earlier Persian and Byzantine traditions, blending functionality with spiritual symbolism. Similarly, in Indian temples, architects carved stone to create dramatic plays of light during solstices and equinoxes, aligning structures with celestial events. This wasn't just about aesthetics, it was a universal language of architecture that transcended borders. As empires expanded, so did these techniques. The Mughals in India drew inspiration from Persian gardens and Islamic architecture, incorporating courtyards and water features to enhance the interplay of light and shadow. In Europe, Gothic cathedrals borrowed from Eastern designs, using stained glass to transform sunlight into divine narratives. Even in the Americas, indigenous cultures like the Maya and Aztecs built pyramids and temples that captured solar alignments, proving that this architectural dialogue was truly global. These shared principles didn't just shape individual buildings, they laid the foundation for centuries of design traditions, connecting civilizations through a common appreciation for the power of light. Today, scholars are uncovering these connections with new tools and technologies. By studying ancient structures with 3D modeling and advanced imaging, they're decoding how architects thousands of years ago mastered these techniques. What's even more exciting is how this knowledge is inspiring modern design. Architects are revisiting these ancient principles to create sustainable, light-filled spaces that respond to their environments in innovative ways. The legacy of light and shadow isn't just a relic of the past, it's a living, evolving art form that continues to shape our world. Imagine being able to step back in time and walk through an ancient temple, not just as it stands today, but as it was originally designed, with every ray of light and shadow perfectly cast by its architects. Thanks to modern technology, this is no longer just a dream. Tools like 3D modeling and laser scanning are revolutionizing how we study ancient architecture, allowing us to uncover long-lost secrets of light and shadow manipulation. These methods give us an unprecedented window into the minds of the builders who mastered these techniques thousands of years ago. For example, recent studies using laser scanning at sites like the Pantheon in Rome have revealed precise alignments that ancient architects used to harness sunlight at specific times of the year. This wasn't just about aesthetics, it was a deliberate way to connect their structures to the rhythms of the cosmos. Similarly, 3D models of Egypt's Karnak temple have shown how its massive columns were designed to create patterns of light and shadow that shifted with the seasons, adding layers of meaning to the space. These discoveries aren't just fascinating historical footnotes, they're lessons in innovation that can inspire modern design. By studying how ancient cultures used light and shadow, we can rethink our own approach to architecture. What if today's buildings could harness sunlight not just for energy efficiency, but to create spaces that change and evolve with the time of day or the season? The possibilities are endless, and the wisdom of the past might just hold the key to a more sustainable and beautiful future. As we close this exploration, let's reflect on how these ancient techniques remind us that architecture is more than just construction. It's a conversation between humanity and the natural world, one that continues to evolve with every new discovery. Throughout history, ancient architects achieved something truly remarkable. They didn't just build structures, they crafted experiences. By mastering the interplay of light and shadow, they transformed stone and mortar into spaces that evoked awe, spirituality, and wonder. From the precise alignment of the pyramids to capture the sun's rays, to the intricate play of shadows in Gothic cathedrals that seem to breathe life into their walls, these designs were far from accidental. They were deliberate acts of ingenuity, blending art, science, and purpose. What's even more fascinating is how these ancient techniques still resonate today. Modern architects and designers continue to draw inspiration from these timeless principles, using light and shadow to create spaces that feel alive and meaningful. It's a testament to the enduring brilliance of those who came before us, proving that great design transcends time. But as we marvel at these achievements, it's worth asking, what else might these ancient structures be hiding? Could there be more secrets waiting to be uncovered in the way these architects shaped their world? The beauty of history is that it's never truly finished. It's a story that continues to unfold with every discovery. So, what do you think? What other mysteries might ancient architecture hold, waiting for us to unravel? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this journey into the past, don't forget to subscribe for more explorations into history's most captivating enigmas. Together, let's keep uncovering the stories that shape our world.